It's a beautiful weekend here in Budapest, and thankfully the temperatures have dropped a little. So unlike 2 days ago when it was above 40 degrees, we are now comfortably below 35. Even this is warm, but compared to how it was, this is honestly a fantastic break. When it comes to the energy situation, Hungary is still doing quite well. The nuclear power station at Paks has not been shut down. It continues operating at about 11%. So looking at the current data, it is currently pumping out 226 megawatts instead of the usual 2000, so about 11%. And Hungary at the moment is using 6,023 megawatts and creating 5,785, which is 96% of how much it needs. And of all the energy it's using, 85% basically is coming from solar. So Hungary doing quite well. And in fact, yesterday, both our Prime Minister Peter Magyar and our Minister of the Economy, István Kapitány, came out and said, thank you so much for Hungarians for sticking together and pulling your weight and doing what needs to be done. Right now, the crisis point is sort of past. You no longer need to self-regulate on electricity. So these are very good signs. Also yesterday, we got some inflation news from Hungary saying that the inflation rate is lower than they expected. It is now 1.5%. Government then proudly announced it's amazing and even food prices have gone down. Hate to break it to them, food prices have not gone down. If you buy butter, if you buy milk, if you buy meat, if you buy vegetables, the prices are exactly the same. As a customer, as a consumer, I haven't felt a single change in my pocketbook, which is what counts. No doubt businesses might be doing a little bit better with the strengthening of the forint, but for me, it doesn't affect me, unfortunately, at all in a positive way or a negative way. Food is still very, very expensive. Actually, speaking of food, so the school year is about to begin, and we just got a new updated bill for our children. Our children go to a state school, and because they are fed there, we have to pay a little bit for their food. No doubt this is not the entire amount that we're paying, but we're paying something. And last year for our children, we have two. One child who eats everything. He has the little snack in the morning and the lunch and the afternoon snack and whatever. And our other son who only has lunch effectively. So you can imagine that for one son we're paying the total amount, and for the other we're paying 2/3, let's say. And last year our combined bill for the two of them per month was 25,000 forints. Now this year, the combined bill they've just told us is going to be 35,000 forints. So that is a 10,000 forint increase. That is a 40% rise. That is a lot. That is a lot. So on one hand, the Tisza government is doing well with kids who are from desperate backgrounds, poor one-parent families, orphans, this sort of stuff. Great, they get a bonus of 100,000 forints. But our food prices have gone up 40% this year, and we're not the only one. We don't go to a special school. This is a state school in District 5 here in Budapest. That is a huge increase. And at the same time, even though we get a little bit of a contribution from the government because we have children, that contribution has not gone up. And the government hasn't even announced any plans for it to go up, which of course it should, because that would help a lot of people rather than just a little few when they talk about being good-spirited and good-hearted and helping orphans and children in need, which is of course also a good thing, but that's a tiny percentage of the population. And then yesterday afternoon, we got a Facebook update from our Prime Minister, Peter Magyar, who announced how the 6,000 billion forints that we're going to be getting from the European Union in funds that were owed for ages, but now because we have Tisza, they're going to arrive. He set out exactly how they would be spent. So let me just quickly go through that. So one of the first things he started off with, there will be affordable rental housing and student dormitories. And this is a historic first large-scale EU program of this type in Hungary. 600 million euros, which is more than 230 billion forints, are going to be allocated to this for new energy-efficient rental apartments and dormitory places, plus conversion of existing buildings for residential use. This is aimed at easing the housing crisis. Sort of good news, but the fact that they want everyone to rent, it would be great if they produced houses that people could buy. Still, a good start. Rail vehicle procurement was another thing announced. This is one of the largest and most visible items on his list. Approximately 700 billion forints in total. This will account for 42 modern, low-floor suburban railway trains. These are known as heatwave here in Hungary. They are the green trains you occasionally see on the edge of Budapest. And these trains will be on the Szentendre, Ráckeve and Csepel lines, and they will replace 40 to 50-year-old rolling stock. So if you're a big fan of sort of public transport like I am and like my son is, take the opportunity to jump on these heaves while they're still out there, because actually they're quite cool. And the fact that they're 40 years old is amazing. But still, 42 new trains, that's a good step. There will also be 35 new double-decker intercity motor trains for regional routes. This includes destinations like Debrecen, Szeged, Pécs, Miskolc, as well as others. There will be improved accessibility for the elderly as well as families with strollers. Now, when it comes to education, there will be more than 151 billion forints, primarily for digital educational development to give students and teachers more equal access. That to me sounds like an incredible waste. That also seems to me like one of those programs where you can just pump an unbelievable amount of money into it and get not very much in return, but you can bookkeep the entire amount. So I don't see anything about salaries for teachers, which is what I'd like to see. Healthcare, there's nearly 170 billion forints in total, 24 billion for the development of primary care. These are GPs or háziorvosok. 6.5 billion forints for local health and social institutions. Again, I don't hear about salaries, but maybe this contains that, but it's absolutely not clear. As well as 125 billion forints for retrospective coverage of earlier healthcare investments and digitalization. There's no way digitalization should cost that much, but anyway. Okay, there'll also be an energy system modernization and efficiency with several 100 billion forints for electricity grid upgrades. That's great. Installation of smart meters. I don't like that at all. Support for residential energy efficient investments and measures to make it easier to connect new solar and wind capacities to the grid. I hope by this they also mean consumer solar panels to the grid. Then we move on to sort of more loans. So we have rentals and now we have loans. There will be support for small and medium-sized enterprises via the Magyar Fejlesztési Bank, the Hungarian Developmental Bank. That is nearly 645 billion Hungarian forints in capital strengthening, and this will enable more preferential and concessional financing, so loans, for Hungarian SMEs development, growth and innovation projects. So these are the biggest line items on his list, but the full plan apparently has more than 60 items covered, including additional transport, environmental, social, local infrastructure and other projects. And they won't just be dealing with Budapest, thank God, they'll also be dealing with people in the countryside, smaller towns, small villages, which is great. This 16.4 billion euro package, it still depends on meeting remaining milestones, reforms and deadlines with the European Commission. So while Tisza and Magyar Peter have told us now numerous times that the money's home, we've got the money, it's coming back. It actually hasn't come back yet, and it still depends on Hungary to do certain things. I hope this doesn't mean totally sacrificing our sovereignty at the altar of Brussels, but it might. But yesterday, our Prime Minister framed the announcement as delivering on the promise to bring the funds home for rebuilding public services, boosting competitiveness, supporting businesses and addressing everyday issues such as housing, transport, education, health and energy costs. So absolutely a win for him, a win for Tisza. If we just look at the messaging, if we look at the reaction, people like it. People like to hear good news, even if it's sort of good news in advance. And then finally today, it's Saturday, Parliament is in session. They are going to be revealing their short list of people for the position of Hungarian president, a position I think I've told you many times that I don't care at all about. It makes not a blind bit of difference who is going to be the individual rubber stamping agreements, greeting people at airports and opening hospitals. It makes not a blind bit of difference, but they will be revealing the names today, and they will be voting on who they choose today. And of course, Tisza has a supermajority in parliament, so you can expect that whomever they put forward is the person who will be voted in. So by the end of today, Hungary will have a new president, and everyone in Tisza is going to say, yay, this man is totally awesome, he's absolutely amazing. Or woman, should I say. And everyone who's an opposition member will say, oh, but Tomáš Súlyog was just as great. And I think they're both right. So for sure the person who's going to be voting in will be okay. Will he be any better than Tomáš Súlyog? No. Will what they do change depending on who it is? No. Does it really matter? Not at all. But it'll be good news, because at least we'll get past this pointless political step and move on to real issues. That's it. If you like my stuff, give me a like, give me a share. Thanks.